So welcome to the first of what I hope will be bi-weekly podcasts with you to discuss matters on the city council meeting agendas that have been put forth by my office and our city departments that'll have a direct impact on you, the citizens of our city and the people to whom I answer. As we sat back and thought about this, we do a lot of different communication venues. We do the quarterly newsletter, we do the mayor's minutes, but on the council agenda items, you really only get to hear from me typically when a councilor asks a question. So this first podcast is being pre-recorded, but in the future I hope to make it scheduled live like we do some of the other things, so that we'll be able to field your questions and it's more interactive. And so you'll get to ask me questions about why I think something about an issue in real time. I am aware sometimes during the city council meetings, I don't always have the chance to explain fully to you, the people, items that are discussed during the meeting from my point of view, and that's really the focus here. So I would encourage you to attend these Facebook Live sessions and ask your questions, but please kind of keep them to the council agenda items that we're talking about on a given week or a preceding week, or an issue that may have already happened. In the interest of having you understand my reasoning, though, and without being filtered through the lens of responding to a question from a councilor, I'll spend some time explaining to you the who, what, where, when, and whys of some of these agenda items, and some of them will be pretty straightforward. Now, I won't go into every resolution or issue that we come up, but what I see to be the ones that you might have questions about, but when we do it interactively, I'm happy to answer your questions on any of them. So there are several contracts on the agenda for the March 21st meeting. The first is the union contract between the City of Methuen and Methuen Police Patrolmen's Association. And let me tell you, that was a long and extended negotiation. It was conducted respectfully, but I want to explain a little bit about collective bargaining because I don't think the average citizen may have had experience in collective bargaining. When you go into a collective bargaining process, each side goes in with a wish list of things that they want to do and the priority in which they want to get them. And that's important because at the end of the day, almost always you're not able to get all of them. And so as city council deliberates the contract, I would encourage you not to think, even if they aren't in favor of the contract, it's not what I would consider a vote against the mayor. And I'll give you a perfect example. So there were 3 areas of focus for me in the patrolman's contract. There were actually 5, 3 of which I got. So in the first place, we eliminated longevity. So for any new employee in the Methuen Patrolmen's Association after July 1st, 2021, they will no longer get longevity. That has almost been eliminated by this administration in almost every union in the city. We have 1 left to go. Secondly, beyond longevity, we were able to remove the stacking that existed before. I don't know how important that is to people. Thirdly, we exercised our management rights and we eliminated a swing shift. So the chief, in his assessment coming on board, in addition to the reorg that he's been talking to you about, his feeling was that the Methuen Police Department would be more effective if it was managed in shift 1, shift 2, shift 3. So we did give the day shift a 7% differential. You do see that done in other cities and in other departments in the city as well, other collective bargaining agreements. But it's important to understand that there was a 9.5% differential in the swing shift. So we eliminated that swing shift. So those are 3 things I got. Issues that may cause consternation, the detail rate, which we tried to get into and we may come back to. But on the whole, I'm pretty pleased that we've made significant progress in this contract, right? It was a long negotiation, and it shows the willingness of both parties to give and take. Now, I don't want to just tell you what the city got from the contract. So the patrolman got, we allowed the Quinn benefit to be used at various ranks and file. And that's something that people say, well, why would you do that, Mayor? And I want you to understand clearly, because we want the best and the brightest to be our Methuen patrol officers. That's who we want in the city. And it's my belief, and I think if you talk to Chief McNamara, he's going to echo this, that we're going to get even better applicants to come to the city of Methuen to become Methuen police officers by doing that. It's a significant step forward. And so in conjunction with the reorg, Methuen Patrolman's contract, but there will be debate on several issues within the contract, and I would urge you to go back and understand the point I made a little bit earlier, that each party goes into a negotiation for a collective bargaining agreement with things that they want, and doesn't always get all of them, right? And so you get as many as you can, and you try to, there's a give and take to the process, if you will. And, the three things that I mentioned earlier, those are the biggest things that were taken out. So that was the Methuen Patrolman's contract. That is probably the biggest thing on the agenda for the 21st. Next is an employment contract between the City of Methuen and our Chief Administrative and Financial Officer, or our CAFO, Maggie Dupre. And so let me be crystal clear here. One of the things that we have to do, and I'm not talking about my role, one of the things that we have to do is understand that this is a $175 million a year business. And it has to be run like a $175 million a year business. We can't run it like Joe's Garage and expect that, you're going to pay people certain amounts of money and have them do certain things. So I did a comparison of, what the two chiefs make, what the superintendent of school makes, and on the city side, clearly the most important position, and I say that even with the mayor in mind, is the Chief Administrative Financial Officer. She holds the power to negate spending on the school side, negate spending on the city side, and in my view, has done an admirable job of taking this city. And so, we're going to talk about her appointment a little bit later, but let's talk about facts. Let's understand the facts. So when I came into office with this CAFO, we sat down and established a conservative fiscal budgeting process. And so the end result of that is that we've seen our free cash grow from 1.78 million to 12.6 million. Now, oftentimes the council and I disagree on the use of free cash, and that's okay. But you need to understand that my view on it is we're here to every year to add into free cash. And I'm sitting here telling you today, we will be in the black again this year, fiscal year 22, and we'll be adding money into free cash. And that's important. On top of that, you also need to understand that, some people are out there thinking, well, the city's in such great financial shape because, we got the COVID money, or we got the ARPA money. And so let's separate those two, because I want to talk about those for a minute. So the CVRF funding, the 4.3 million, was in 2020, came in. And I want to be right up front. We used that to do things in the city that we would not have done. Air purifiers, PPE, clean air in our season hall, all those kind of things. And yes, even the hazard pay, right? And I know many people have different opinions on the hazard pay. I still stand by the fact that we had people in here every day, including your mayor, even though I didn't take the hazard pay. And I felt the employees deserved that recognition. Now, it remains to be seen on whether the state agrees with us or not, because that's still being judged. But I go back to the CAFO and say, she's overseen a 1.78 million growth to 12.6. And so when people out there say, well, that's because of the federal money, my point to you, and why I started talking about CVRF funding, is it hasn't been used for general fund revenue. So people who say that oftentimes are confused about municipal finance and need an explanation. So I would urge you to look at Sean Cronin, the fiscal overseer, his opine on the growth of the free cash in the city. The free cash is at its highest level ever, and it's due to conservative budgeting. We pulled in more revenues than we anticipated, and that's directly on Maggie and myself. And then if you go into the last 2 years, we significantly underran our expenses. So we ran our expenses below our budget. And that's the obligation we have to you as citizens, to provide the services within the budget framework. So last year, that underrun was 3.8 million. So 7 million of the growth to 12 million is directly attributable to conservative forecasting or budget revenue process and, making sure we watch our expenses all during the year. And that's just in 1 year. So I don't go back to 2020 and bring that forward because we did the same thing and those things added in, right? So if you go 7 to 9, you can start to see that it's the process that we've established that really is there to build free cash. Now, are we going to put 8 million in free cash this year? No, we're not. No, we're not. But we're going to put money in free cash, right? So we took a lot of people forget that we took some expenses related to increasing the mental health associated with the schools. We gave the schools $5 million more this year, right? And that was important, and I strongly support that. So don't confuse the growth in free cash, which some people say, well, the city got federal money. It's not connected. So Maggie should and gets a lot of the credit for that, our CAFO. And the second piece is, that her, we've seen the bond rating rebound significantly. And by the way, with the recent Superior Officer's arbitration, that's going to improve even better. So the city's on the verge of A+ bond rating again, and that's great news because there are a lot of things, and I'll go into ARPA for a second here, that we won't do with the ARPA money. The 46 million that you'll recall was 9 million till your mayor reached out to the governor and said, we need a little bit more money. Why are other cities getting more than we do? And the net result was we got 19 from the feds and 27 more from the state. Right? So we're going to use that on infrastructure projects. But the point here is that, free cash has to be used once in a while as well. And that's a process we're working on with the city council. So Maggie Dupre has done everything that you would expect of somebody in the chief administrative financial officers, and she's the first employee that I conducted a performance review and just did it this past week, right? And just in case you're asking, it wasn't all accolades. I talked to her about, here's the things that you're really strong on, here's the opportunities for your growth. So her contract, I compared what the superintendent's making, what the two chiefs are making, and said, we need to bring, in a city with a $175 million budget, we need to bring that salary in line, and that's what I'm doing with this contract, right? It also extends her for 3 years, which is a great thing for continuity in the city, right? And outside financial agencies will read that as well. And again, I'd urge you, don't take my opinion for it, right? I'm telling you based on the facts that I've seen. Reach out to the Sean Cronins of the world and see how they feel. And I'm going to tell you, the vast majority of the councils are going to support this as well. They're going to like this. All right, the third contract that will be considered at City Council March 21st meeting is really an agreement between the City of Methuen and Evans Memorial Library. And so this is important because there are periodic times when the library needs help and upkeep. The library is run by a trust foundation, but the city has an obligation and provides funding annually, right? And we want that because, let's be honest, the Nevins is an amazing public library. And if you haven't been there, you should be, right? So don't take my word for it, call Krista McLeod. So when we consider, and we're looking at things on ARPA related to replacing the air conditioning, which is significantly aged, since the building does not belong to the city, it's a building that doesn't belong to the city, we need an agreement in place that covers, and we've done this in the past when we bonded the improvements to the Nevins, that covers the city, and the city becomes a leaseholder, if you will, for the library. That's an important step legally and specifically. I think you've heard councilors say, even publicly, that they're in support of helping the improve the air conditioning at the library, which is under significant strain. That'll be one of the many things we talk about the week of the 28th and 29th, when the department heads present their priorities on the ARPA funding to you, and I hope you'll watch. And hopefully we'll get a chance to do a podcast related to that and tell you, here's what I think. And last but not least, this comes into the category of what the mayor considers a no-brainer. And let me tell you why I call it a no-brainer. We have an extension of our existing grant from free taxi services for our citizens that was set to expire on March 31st, but now can be extended to June 30th, 2022. Now let me explain what that means. So through Methuen, our Methuen Cares initiative, we got a grant from the state that allowed a specific amount of funding to be spent related to taxi services. We had great difficulty with setting up the taxi services, so by the time they got started, it was late. This taxi service is a benefit to you, any citizen. You can call a day in advance and register for a ride to a doctor, to a lawyer, to a hospital, to a clinic, to a veterans agent, to the veterans office. And so it's a terrific thing. And so to me, this is free money on the table. So because there was a little bit of a late start, we haven't expended all the grant, and the state is willing to extend the grant from a time period. So to me, again, a no-brainer. Why would City Council consider this? Because it's a free benefit to the citizens. And by the way, we need to do a better job publicizing that. So go back to what I said. Free rides to doctors, nurses, lawyers, hospitals, clinics, veterans office. And all you need to do is call Methuen Cares a day in advance and schedule for the ride. So it's a really great feature, and we want to extend this so that you have an added benefit as we're starting, please God, to come out of the pandemic. So those are the three, contractual type items that I put on the agenda, and that's my rationale for why they're there. But I have two appointments connected to the contract of the Chief Administrative Financial Officer. I'm asking City Council to reappoint Maggie Dupre as the city's Chief Administrative and Financial Officer. I've given you the facts on the job that she's done. She is what I consider to be a true partner. And that doesn't mean neither she or I are immune to mistakes. But the job that she's done can be judged by the facts. And the facts say that she has successfully grown the fiscal process here in the city of Methuen. And I talked about, the free cash and, the bond rating. But let me stop for a minute and talk about what you, the citizen, need to understand is we've established a process where the CAFO and I sit with every department head every month and go through administratively and financially. We look at every budget line item and where the risk is. Not in the 11th month, every month. So month one, we're sitting there saying, okay, we got to watch this. Or, in the example of, DPW, for example, hey, we're running heavy on overtime here. What are we going to do about that, right? It's a conversation that's fiscal in nature, but also process and project oriented as well to try and drive the city forward. So the other appointment is I am recommending the appointment of Tammy DeGrazia to the position of Assistant City Clerk. Now, Tammy has been acting as the acting city clerk. I got to say that acting, there's a lot of acting in that, but that's the truth of the matter. Since we promoted Ann Druin to the city clerk's position. And so you need to know that there were 9 applicants for the position. 5 were internal, 4 were external. We had an interview committee that consisted of Ann Druin, the city clerk, Lisa Crowley, the human resource director, and my chief of staff, who was a former city clerk herself, Tina Tuma Conway. And the 3 of those individuals interviewed all 9 people. I should say that 9 people were interviewed, not there were 9 applicants. There were 9 when you looked at the resumes and the information that were invited for interviews, and the team did the interviews of the 9, and in their mind and in my mind, Tammy DeGrazia is the right person for this position. She's been kind of at the forefront of the election process, if you will, and for those of you that remember when we went through the last presidential election, or maybe you don't, and it's good for me to clarify, Jack Wilson, the city clerk at the time, was out of office and was sick. And so Ann had to take over his duties, rotating to all the polling sites. Tammy DeGrazia was here, holding the fort, right? Providing the mayor with regular updates because I went downstairs to make sure everything was running smoothly, probably 37,000 times that day, right? And she did a great job, allaying my fears and kind of, showing me that she knew what was going on. And even late into the night, and I'm sure Tina could testify to this, when it's a presidential election, there's lots of results coming in, right? So there's a lot to calculate. It's not like a smaller election. So there's a great amount of work to do. And that expertise is important. It's one of the many important fields in the city clerk's office. So I firmly believe that Tammy DeGrazia is the candidate for this position. She's a longtime City of Methuen employee, and she's deserving. And so I'm asking City Council and you to make sure that you support her for the position of Assistant City Clerk, because she deserves it, quite frankly. Okay. So, I talked pretty fast, and I probably have to talk a little bit slower in the future, and I use my hands a lot, so I'll probably get coaching to put your hands down and bite your thumb or something. But the intent of these podcasts, like I said, is really the one thing we looked at when we saw all the communication that we're doing, and hopefully you're seeing some of it. So we post on social media communication, we post on, we post on social media, we post on the city website, we post, other places like the disability website. We send out a quarterly newsletter. The mayor does the weekly mayor's minutes where I talk about COVID, the impact on the city, and then bring a special guest on. I've been trying, I hope you recognize that, to bring small businesses on, because I think we need to support our small businesses. And we've got some good things coming in the city from a small business standpoint in the near future. So what I want to make sure you understand is this is not, I use a phrase that Tina loves to hate. It's called surround sound. And what I mean by that is that everybody has a different medium at which they understand things, right? Or they hear things. And we're trying to make sure that the information is out there, as readily available, and yes, I'm going to say the T word, as transparent as possible. So in future podcasts, you're going to get the chance to do this live with me. This is the very first one, and we wanted to test it out and see how it works. But you're going to get, they're intended to be a half hour or less, and this will be far less than a half hour today. But, your questions or your feedback are the important ones, right? And if they're done respectfully, I will answer them, right? Any question that's given to me respectfully, I'll answer. And I want to highlight to you, when I look at the national scene, it's okay for us to agree to disagree, right? Diversity is a great thing. We have different perspectives on issues and backgrounds, and that's why it's important to dialogue. But this podcast, this medium, is set up so that I can talk to you about the meat issues on the council agenda and kind of tell you, here's what I was thinking when I put them on the agenda, right? Rather than, the very limited time I get to talk on a council floor. And so this is an important thing. So I hope you have found this podcast helpful in explaining those reasons that I put them. I look forward to any feedback you might have, and definitely to our next meeting, which will be held on the Thursday before every council meeting. So 2 weeks from today, at 4:15 p.m., we will do a Facebook Live event, and I will talk about the council agenda items that I put on for the first meeting in April. And my hope is that you will find the time to do it, and we can make it more of an interactive dialogue. Right? I'll still tell you why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, and then you can ask questions, and if I made something unclear in any way, shape, or form, you can tell me what that is. So please, if you see this, spread the words to your friends and neighbors. The next one, like I said, I want to repeat it again, is 2 weeks from today, and I don't know the date, it's early April, it would be by then. 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks from this Thursday, so it would be March 31st. I could do my math, right? Are there 31 days of March? There are. So March 31st at 4:15 p.m., we'll do a Facebook Live event, talk about the things that are on the first April council agenda. And if we do it right, we'll have it set up so that we can get your questions and dialogue tied in. But this medium, we're going to restrict just to the council agenda items. So if you've got other issues, please, always, I'm here working for you every day. Please feel free to reach out to me at my email. That's mayorperry@ci.methuen.ma.us, or call my office at 978-983-8505. Or if you have an issue that needs addressing, like a pothole or something like that, please feel free to go to the city website and use the C-Click Fix app. I monitor that report weekly to see that the items aren't aging. And I do have to say that we're doing a good job. I'm going to leave you with a couple things. We still need lots more employees. We're going to open positions across the city. The unemployment in Methuen is at 5.4% in February. That's the numbers I just got in yesterday. That's significantly higher than our traditional 3.6. And so while it's better than it was, during the height of the pandemic, it's still too high. And we've got good jobs out here for people on the city side, great insurance and benefits. And I encourage you, go to the City of Methuen website and check out those jobs. Last, but by no means least, I want you to have a great day, because I'm recording this on St. Patrick's Day. So I've got my little shamrocks, and someplace here I've got my little Irish flag. So I'll wave that for you. I wish you Godspeed. May everybody take care of you, stay healthy. Until the next time we meet, either here on a podcast or on one of the other mediums, I look forward to hearing from you and whether you value this forum. Thank you, and take care.